Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Hello, this is Jasper Chu with your 12 p.m. headlines. BC Ferries head Nicholas Jimenez, the former president of ICBC, has been appointed as CEO of BC Ferries. This comes after an international executive search to replace interim CEO Jill Sharland. In the announcement, BC Ferries board chair Joy McPhail said that Jimenez is a successful leader with a proven track record geared towards customers. A not-for-profit housing organization in downtown Vancouver was the victim of a robbery last Thursday. The Performing Arts Lodge, otherwise known as PAL, feels they were targeted by the suspects and hopes that a community can help get back the stolen painting. Amelia Francis Fincham has the story.
It took them nearly 15 minutes, but the two individuals in question did not give up. Every unit they could until they made the entry into the building. Building manager Letitia McGregor is horrified that something like this would happen. But after some investigation, she believes the building was targeted.
Most of our population are 55 and over. They're very vulnerable. We have home support. Today, automatically when, truly here they are being targeted.
The suspects took off with a limited edition Joe Average print that was a gift from the artist himself. Many residents are heartbroken to lose a sentimental piece, but more so, they feel violated. I'm Amelia Francis Fincham with 1680 The Crow.
And Amelia joins us now. What led them to believe that this was a targeted attack?
Well, Jasper, the print was taken off the 8th floor of the building, which is impossible to gain access to without a key fob. Therefore, the speculation is that these people may have been there before.
And is it possible that they are unaware of the value of this print?
The footage on the cameras show that the individuals are taking photographs or searching for the item on Google. Regardless, the residents are keeping an eye out on Craigslist and Marketplace, hoping that they can find it.
Thank you, Millie.
Thank you, Jasper.
The tall timber student housing building is set to be complete in fall of 2024, but is there really a need for it? Our reporter Mac Fleet finds out.
There are 7 different dorm buildings at BCIT's Burnaby Campus. When at max capacity, they can house approximately 350 students. However, one resident, Hendrik de Calveras, says the buildings are not at full capacity and was surprised to hear the news of additional housing being built.
We're short 2 rooms now. Someone just moved out, but we've been short 1 room the whole year. And I was actually talking with one of my classmates the other week, and he's from Winnipeg. And he didn't get in, but there's empty rooms in almost all the dorms, which is a bit strange.
The construction for the new building has interfered with access to parking lots as well as caused delays with delivery drivers. Mac Fleet, 1680, The Crow.
A new clip from passengers on Yeti Air Flight 691 has been released of passengers talking before the flight. The flight was co-piloted by Anju Katuida, whose husband died in a 2006 plane crash of the same airline. So far, 70 of the 72 passengers have been confirmed dead. Video footage on board by Sonu Jaiswal showed the plane banking sharply to the right before crashing just outside Pokhara Airport in Nepal, which was its final destination. Italian law enforcement has arrested Matteo Messina, Italy's most wanted fugitive and a crime boss.
Pasquale Angelo Santo from the paramilitary police says the mafia boss was arrested in a healthcare facility where he went for treatments. Italian state television is reporting Denaro was immediately taken to a secret location by police. A young man when he went into hiding, he's now 60. Messina Denaro, who had a power base in western Sicily, was considered the island's Cosa Nostra top boss Even while a fugitive, he was tried in absentia and convicted of dozens of murders and faces multiple life sentences. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
British television presenter Jeremy Clarkson issued an apology to Meghan Markle and Prince Harry after he wrote a column in The Sun saying Meghan Markle should be paraded naked in public while the crowds chant shame in reference to a Game of Thrones scene. ABC's Adam Dimbert has more.
Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan Markle are saying apology not accepted after British TV host Jeremy Clarkson posted a lengthy mea culpa for saying in his newspaper column that he hoped the Duchess of Sussex would one day be forced to parade naked through the streets while the crowd chants shame, a reference to a scene from Game of Thrones. Shame! Clarkson, who rose to fame on Top Gear and now stars in Amazon Prime Video's The Grand Tour and Clarkson's Farm, issued an apology on Instagram saying, "I really am sorry."
Canadian inflation has slowed to 6.3% in December as grocery prices rose while those for gas cooled, according to Statistics Canada. CIBC Executive Director of Economics Ariane Carbonneau says economists hope grocery prices would fall as agricultural prices have already fallen.
With world commodity like agricultural prices coming down, we had hoped to see more of a deceleration. I think what's going on here is that a lot of what we buy in stores is heavily transformed, and there's been pressures all along the chain, right? So from workers having higher wages to transportation costs to all kinds of things that have fed through.
Ranj Pillai has officially taken office as Premier of the Yukon. He says it's his priority to continue the previous government's work in housing, healthcare, and energy, and to ensure all residents are represented and benefit from the area's economic growth.
Our team is strong. We are passionate, committed, and dedicated to serving all Yukoners as we advance the territory in the years ahead.
The University of Victoria has received over $100,000 in federal funding to improve the sound, video, and lighting at its Farquhar Auditorium and increase Indigenous programming. These upgrades include new video equipment that will improve the ability to stream on the internet and will also go to Voices in Circle, Amplifying Indigenous Cultural Voices series. The auditorium is the only custom-built recital hall in Vancouver Island. Kimberly Murray, an individual appointed by First Nations to investigate unmarked mass graves around residential schools, says documents tell the history of genocide against First Nations people. At a national gathering addressing the issue in Vancouver, Murray says there will be many hard questions that need to be answered.
Who are the children that died? What did the children die from? Where are the children buried? And how many little ones died and still are missing?
Neil Moody, CEO of the Canadian Home Builders Association of BC, said proposed changes to the housing approval process in the province will address challenges facing the industry. Moody said previous reviews had to go through various ministries, which contributed to long approval times. BC Premier David Eby just yesterday announced a unified hub for housing developers to get approval as a way to reduce wait times to only a few months. This will replace the current approval process regime, which takes up to 2 years. A Victoria cat managed to keep out of jail after it was found inside a Victoria Police Department vehicle. The VPD officer stopped to investigate an impaired driver when the cat hopped into the vehicle. The VPD said the cat was released on the roadside without facing charges. Anyways, it's currently 7 degrees out and mostly cloudy. Tonight it's forecasted to be 8 degrees out and cloudy with a 30% chance of rain.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. people aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
This is sports on 1680 The Crow.
Welcome back, everyone. BCIT intramurals begin next week, and as our reporter Sylvia Senna explains, some students use it as an opportunity to build community.
BCIT Intramurals is an informal league that players, students, and staff can join. For Lauren Pfeiffer, an exchange student from Germany, the intramurals have become a great way for him to meet new people during his time abroad.
You're basically on your lonesome when you come over. It was a great opportunity to meet people and get to know new persons.
BCIT offers leagues in volleyball, badminton, basketball, futsal, and many other sports. Sylvia Senna, 1680 The Crow.
Former BC Lion quarterback Nathan Rourke said he's looking to create a job for himself heading to the NFL. 24 and from Victoria, he secured a rookie contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars after working for a dozen NFL teams. Rourke says he picked a squad where he could play as a backup quarterback. The Canadian Championship will start in April with 14 teams competing for the Voyageurs Cup. The official start date is April 18th and will include the defending Vancouver Whitecaps and 3 first-time participating teams. Canada Soccer says the first-round tournament teams will be from the Major League Soccer, Canadian Premier Soccer, League 1 BC, and League 1 Ontario and Quebec Premier League. The Dallas Cowboys won 31-14 over Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday night. This is the Cowboys' first road playoff win in 30 years, which was largely devoid of drama. This comes after a weekend of tight matches and incredible comebacks. The team will now go on to the divisional round this Saturday, with the Cowboys facing the 49ers. Italian tennis player Camilla Giorgi has denied allegations that she got a fake COVID-19 certificate so she could travel to and attend this week's Australia Open.
A doctor is under investigation in Italy for supplying false certificates and fake vaccine, and Giorgi's name was revealed in a long list of people implicated by an Italian newspaper on Tuesday. After her 6-0, 6-1 win at the Australian Open, Giorgi confirmed that she'd visited the doctor, but said she'd done nothing wrong, adding any fault is the doctor's. Ahead of the tournament, Tennis Australia Chief Executive Craig Tilly said he was not aware of the fake certificate claims. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
And this is Jasper Chu with your 12 p.m. news headlines for the Crows. Stay tuned for 3 p.m. and thanks for listening, everybody.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow. Now it's time for the comment.
It's now time for Friday's edition of The Comment. Today's comment is on the current state of the Vancouver Canucks. I believe this is the worst team in Canucks history. Now, statistically speaking, this isn't the case, but when you consider the players that they have and the expectations that they haven't met, combined with the downright hilarious ways that they have found ways to lose this year, this for me is their worst season by far. Already through 40 games this season, the Canucks have blown 8 different multi-goal leads. On 3 different occasions this season, they have blown a 3-goal lead by the end of regulation. Let that sink in. This team is accidentally bad, which is the worst thing to be in sports. For reference, the 2015 Buffalo Sabres iced one of the worst teams in league history, going 23, 51, and 8. However, they did that because they wanted Connor McDavid. This team had delusions of grandeur, and for that, they are the worst team in Canucks history. I'm Mac Fleet, and that was my comment.
It's extremely important for people to stay healthy and to stay active as much as possible.
This is 1680 The Crow, and you're listening to our feature presentation.
Welcome back to another episode of the Crow Chronicles. I'm Abby.
I'm Caitlin.
And I'm Sebastian.
So this past weekend, we went to the Vancouver Aquarium. I've only actually been there once before, and it was like way before COVID when they still had beluga whales and stuff. They don't have whales anymore, which is good or bad, whatever you think. But they have a stellar sea lion instead, which is cool.
It was my first time too. I love watching the jellyfish tank. That was really hypnotic to watch.
I also really enjoyed seeing the jellyfish and watching the sea lion show as well.
Did you guys know that the Vancouver Aquarium first opened back in 1956?
Yeah, so today we're talking about that moment in BC history, the opening of the Vancouver Aquarium.
Oh, yeah. So the way the aquarium got started, so talking about the 1950s, right? World War II was over. There's this kind of optimism in the U.S. and Canada. And a Vancouver insurance man, so he was a businessman, not a biologist, kept tropical saltwater fish at home as a hobby. Well, that was very hard to do in the 1950s, because you couldn't go out, if you were tropical saltwater fish, you had to have somebody had to go collect them in Fiji or Tonga or Australia and ship them to you. He believed that Vancouver, as a growing metropolis, needed an aquarium, because all the great cities had one: Chicago, San Francisco, New York, Seattle, and Vancouver didn't have an aquarium. So he said, well, Vancouver needs an aquarium. So he led a community movement to get an aquarium established. And that the trick to getting the aquarium established was that he convinced all 3 levels of government to put up $100,000 each if the other level of government would put up $100,000. And he was a very politically astute guy. And so he started with the Premier of BC, and the Premier said, sure, I'll do it, because the feds are never going to do it. And then he got the Mayor of Vancouver to say, who said the same thing, the feds will never do it. But he already knew that the feds would do it. And so aquarium was built with that $300,000 and a lot of community support, and it opened on June 15th, 1956.
So that was John Nightingale, the second director of the Vancouver Aquarium who we spoke to. We learned that the Vancouver Aquarium is the oldest and the first public aquarium that opened in Canada, and it has become one of the 5 largest aquariums in North America.
It's huge, and it's located in one of the most iconic spots in Vancouver.
Yeah, did you know that Stanley Park wasn't actually the only location considered for the aquarium?
So Mayor Hume, who was the Vancouver mayor of the day, decided that's where it was going to be. That's not where anybody wanted it. The park board didn't want it there. Some of the city councilors didn't want it there. The aquarium didn't really want it there. But the mayor said that's where it's going. Because there used to be a zoo, a free zoo in Stanley Park, occupying the area up from what's now the train that runs at Christmas time and at Halloween down to the aquarium. There were zoo exhibits scattered around that landscape. And so the zoo was already there. So Mayor Hume said, well, this is kind of like a fishy piece of the zoo, put it in Stanley Park. And he made the decision personally. Some people wanted it to go down by somewhere near where the Vancouver Museum is. And back then, Falls Creek, of course, was lumber mills. It was industrial. And somebody thought right at the end of right next to where the aquatic center is, sort of between the Burrard and would be just east of the Burrard Bridge.
The Vancouver Public Aquarium Association from UBC, founded in 1950, also had a role in the opening of the aquarium. We talked to Andrew Tribe, a marine mammal research unit professor at UBC, who shared the experience of one of the members of the association at the time.
They started it from thinking about needing access to do research where they could have saltwater tanks, a place to care for things. And I think that was combined. So I think certainly the research community from UBC was very central to that, but also with someone like Murray Newman, who also had his eye on the public and the need for public education. And I think it was a good combination. I think that probably also helped to steer the direction so that over the years that research was always one of the pillars of what they did. And animals were not there for one's entertainment, but to educate.
Oh, I had no idea about any of that. I wonder what the implications of the aquarium's opening had on tourism in Vancouver at the time.
That's a great question, Abby. It was definitely very busy when we visited over the weekend. John Nightingale said when the aquarium first opened, it was only the size of the tropics room, which is only a 9,000 square foot facility. I can't imagine the crowd when 10,000 people showed up for the opening weekend.
Well, it was highly anticipated, the opening. In fact, I have a good friend who's now in his 80s who was a child standing holding his mother's hand in that opening day lineup to get into the aquarium. They had 10,000 people on the first day went through the aquarium. It was a lot smaller than it is today. So it was right from the get-go, it was very publicly popular and helped put Vancouver on the map in a number of different ways.
When we went last Saturday, the place was packed with families. You could hear kids all by the different animals, especially during the Sea Lion show. We were really impressed by that too. The show wasn't only about tricks and jumps, it was also very educational. The hosts talk about the relationship that trainers and animals have and how important it is for making sure the animals are healthy.
Yeah, I really loved how centered the Vancouver Aquarium is around education. Besides the Sea Lion show, there were also many other opportunities to learn about marine life through displays and murals and pictures and interactive screens. It really seems as though this has been the aquarium's top priority since the beginning.
You don't need to be a diver to observe marine life, that they've recreated different habitats, different parts of the ocean, and you can see firsthand what's there. And so I think that's been a very important part. It's allowed people to see marine mammals up close and to learn about them in different ways. They were the first to bring a killer whale into captivity, and as a result, changed the world's attitudes and perception, understandings about killer whales, because people got to see them up close. Before that, everybody was terrified of them, and there were efforts even to remove them and to kill them because people were afraid of them. And now they are the mascots or heroes of the marine life here. So they played a role in changing public perceptions. And I think, the public, we tend to love and care for things that we know or that we've seen, and to be told that we should care about fish that we've never seen and can't relate to, or let's say a killer whale that we can't relate to, it's very difficult. But once people get to know them, and I think the aquarium provides a means to get to know marine life in a way that one cannot do by walking along a beach or looking out over the ocean.
I like that the Vancouver Aquarium tries to teach you when you visit instead of being like an amusement park. It also feels like other public aquariums across the province that opened up afterwards took inspiration from the Vancouver Aquarium too.
Toronto has Ripley's, whatever, believe it or not, and they've got something, and that was much later when that opened up. And then, then there's in Marineland, or is it what do they call it? Marineland, isn't it, in Niagara Falls, which I've never seen, but that one opened up. And I guess, when I think of these other two, I guess I've seen them being more as set up as a tourist destination. And I think one thing that the Vancouver Aquarium stood out for was, yes, it recognized that tourists would come, but it seemed to be designed to be part of the community and to be a community aquarium and to provide information, promote conservation of marine life, and show what we don't see under the surface. So I think that its approach wasn't private in the sense of making money. I think a big part of its mandate was education, promoting conservation, and ultimately supporting research as well. There are now some other community-based aquariums in British Columbia. So there's one in Ucluelet. They've got a small one up in Campbell River, and I know there's one in Seashelt as well, or Gibson's, I guess is where it is. And they're very, very cool because they're very small and it's very community-based, and but they're very neat.
After visiting the aquarium, I definitely realized that it's a really important place for education on marine life, on top of being a fun place to see all the fish and mammals up close. And I think this is especially important for BC because we're surrounded by water and marine life in nature. So as we spoke to John Nightingale, he also shared how the aquarium impacted him personally.
Academic training was as a scientist and happened to be with salmon. And part of that training in graduate school involved a lot of talking to the public and to school kids. And I came to understand that people are really interested in the oceans and nature, but a lot of people just don't have a pathway, or they don't have the access. And so aquariums seem to me to be a pretty perfect way to engage ordinary people who just have an interest but don't have any background or any technical knowledge. So I've pretty much spent my whole career working in and out of aquariums and museums a little bit. And so I came to Vancouver on purpose when the original director announced his retirement. The aquarium at that point was 37 years old. He announced his retirement, so he'd been the director for a long time. That's a long time to hold the job. And so I came to Vancouver on purpose because of the Vancouver Aquarium. So it was a very significant part of my life, and it's a very significant part of what I believe we should be doing to combat climate change and loss of biodiversity and other things.
I really enjoy learning about the history of the aquarium. It gave me a new perspective on the role these places have when it comes to teaching to new generations about how crucial it is to taking care of animals that you have in front of you. And I think it's also crucial for researchers like Andrew and the Marine Mammal Research Institute team.
I can talk from my side, where we've done a lot of research with primarily sea lions and northern fur seals, and also harbor seals. And so it's been a collaborative effort where we have the ideas for what the research is, but then we need to have animal trainers that can help get the animals to do what's needed to do the research, because we can't collect any data from a sea lion that it doesn't want to do willingly. We can't force it. They're just too big, too strong. And plus, if you do force an animal, you're just going to stress it out, and then your data won't be of any use. So we have to be able to collect data in a way that the animal cooperates 100%, is completely relaxed. And that's where the trainers ensure that those are the conditions under which the animals participate. So at the same time, the aquarium doesn't have the expertise to do the research themselves, but we've got graduate students here, undergraduate students, and just such a depth of knowledge to run those sorts of things. So the university doesn't have the facilities to care for these animals. And so it worked out very well. And then the third aspect in here was the fact that the public got to hear about the research. They would understand why the animals were there, what we're learning from them, and what they're teaching us, and what we're taking back to the field to help conserve marine mammals in the wild.
What I learned was that the salmon plushies at the gift shop are only $20. I mean, that's such a steal. $20 for a salmon plushie? Come on. No, but really, what I learned was how lucky I was to grow up on the West Coast, where I saw a lot of those animals in the wild naturally, like, all the time. I also learned more about how the aquarium came to be and the 3 levels of government the original director, Murray Newman, had to go through to open it. Well, thanks for listening to this episode of The Crow Chronicles.
Be sure to follow BCIT Journalism on Twitter and BCIT News on Instagram.
I'm Abby.
I'm Caitlin.
I'm Sebastian.
Bye!